Hello, creative people. Welcome to Creative Conversations. Usually I have like a segue in, but I just kind of shut that music off. Sorry about that. So, hi. Welcome to Creative Conversations. My name is Hala Citron, and we are so happy that you have chosen to spend this hour with us. Just to give a little bit of history, this podcast was born from my company, I Am Creative, which is all about expanding the definition of creativity beyond a pencil and a paintbrush. And my mission, my message is that when you own your talents, own your voice, own your expression, and step into your power, you will feel more inspiration, you will feel more connection, and you will feel more joy. So in this space, I get to talk to so many inspiring people that have jobs, hobbies, and interests that have varied from 13-year-old entrepreneur making lipstick, real estate brokers, handwriting specialist, lawyer, and so many more. And the conversation is always structured around three questions. One, how do you define creativity? Two, how do you incorporate it into your life? And three, why do you think that it's important? And then we have a free-flowing conversation, and we see where it goes from there. So my inspiring guest for today is Andrea Spacek. She is a yoga and meditation teacher, and I love this. Just to kind of wrap up, we're going to have so much to talk about, but she writes, most simply, I believe in magic. Not that it exists, but that life itself, the body, spirit, this magnificent planet, the universe, is magic, and we are the magicians. We get to create a wild masterpiece with our lives once we finally take a seat in our throne, pick up the paintbrush, and apply the full spectrum of ourself as the paint. Oh my gosh. Hello, Andrea.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the space. That is just so damn powerful. It's crazy.
Woo! It's like, let's do this, right? I mean, let's be this, really.
Let's just do this.
Let's be this.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a call to action, right? It's a call to action.
Well, a little bit. It's kind of like, hello. Are you listening? Be the paint. Get moved around, like get squished, get changed, get things put on top of it, yeah.
I love that. I love what you just said. Get squished, like let all your layers, be revealed. Isn't that it? Yeah. So thank you for inviting me to speak with you today. One of my favorite things to do is be in conversations like this about, the depth of this reality that I don't know how many of us are really like tasting or giving ourselves the joy of experiencing. But I feel like what I've been up to for a long time and more is about creating those spaces for people if they haven't been doing it to have a magical experience happen where they get access to themselves as what I would call a multidimensional being. Like, it's not just the identities that you play and the roles, but it's getting a taste of your essence and getting a taste of all the aspects of self.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So powerful. I just want to, before we dive in, because this is going to be an intense conversation. It is. It's going to be like so rich. And I want to acknowledge. So thank you so much for being here live. And Beth, yay, you're here. Woohoo! Beth's in the house. And my husband Arthur, yay! And yeah, awesome. All the people that are going to be jumping on, like, I'm very grateful that you're spending the time with us. So yeah, like even that segue into, I know like the first question is going to be so rich. So let me just start with a would you rather question. So Andrea, would you rather, if you were stranded on a desert island, would you rather be alone or with someone who talks nonstop?
Alone.
That was quick.
Definitely alone.
I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
You were like, yep, don't even think about it. Alone. Leave me alone.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been more of a quiet being because I love to listen to life happening. And often for me, the first sound I hear is the birds and the sounds of nature. I've always been attuned to that. And I seek it out. I seek out magic in that way. And so when there's just a lot of talking and noise, it's kind of like, okay, yeah. I want to get back to the birds, like after a while, like what's present, like being present with what's really going on here.
So was that always something that came naturally to you?
Yeah, from my earliest memories. I noticed noise that was in the way of it, but I more so I just had this, I felt this like my ears extending out, always to outside. Like if I was inside, I always had this like pull to being outside. Like I want to be out there with like my natural habitat. Always felt more there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I still feel that way. Always have to have a window open.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally understand that. Because feel really closed in without the window open, even if it's a bigger space. Like to have fresh air, movement, connection to it.
Yeah, that's a big deal. It's one of those little things that when you really look at them have always been big deals.
Mm-hmm.
And it does point to that aspect of me that needs a lot of space. And I actually wouldn't even, when I say me, it's really my soul. And I feel like that's everyone. That's everyone's soul. Like the soul is so vast.
Mm-hmm.
It needs all that space. And that's definitely where I exist more, is at the soul level. I feel myself more as that than like Andrea, the human being person, like this body and whoever you think I am, right? So so that's why like the word creativity, I know we're going to get into that more, but it's the language of the soul.
So perfect segue. So answering that first question, how do you define creativity?
It's kind of like, how do you define the undefinable, right? It's vast, but I mean, the language of the soul. And what comes to me first is creativity feels like a dance. It feels like dancing with the divine. It feels like there's this beautiful partnership where I'm being moved and inspired by something that exists at the level of the soul, not the mind so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's that mind level that gets us in the way, doesn't it? I mean, we get so blocked and we get stuck because we're thinking too much. So, I
want to read something that speaks directly to that. So one of the things that one of the ways that creativity comes into my life daily is I pick up I believe like every book has an energy. It has a spirit. Someone put their spirit into creating it. And so books will, I will pull one off. Like I'll just feel one kind of like jumping off the shelf at me, and I'll pull it off, and then I'll just open it up, and it's just what the message is, and I go with that. And so this morning before our call, something just told me to pick up one of my Rumi books, because Rumi is one of my all-time favorite, mystics. And I open it up to this line that really describes It speaks to what you just said. Mystics arrive at what they know differently. They lay a head upon a person's chest and drift into the answer. Thinking gives off smoke to prove the existence of fire. A mystic sits inside the burning.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so rich.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here. It's like if we were in a room together, then we could see each other's facial expressions. But I'm just kind of taking it in.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking, I mean, so much of what you've just said to me just kind of reiterates in the beginning. Us, pick up the paintbrush and apply the full spectrum of ourself as the paint. Be willing to be moved, be willing to change, be willing to show ourselves. I mean, to me, creativity is it's fluid. It's it's your voice, it's your expression, and that changes. Where my voice, there might be a consistent theme, but how I express it now as opposed to how I might have even expressed it a year ago is different.
Yeah. Being willing to, I think, to be change, like this, speaking to that alchemy that really is life, that, we are shaped by our experiences and we're also shaping them. That paradox. It's like, it's both.
Mm-hmm.
So being willing to work with, like, what's right in front of you is the clay. Like, that is what you have to work with right now. It's not like out there somewhere. So that's, that's how, as far as how do I incorporate it into my life? Like, it's like every day, it's like, okay, what's the energy of today? Every day feels like it has a different directive. It feels like it's, I might have my list of things I want to accomplish, but it has its own energy and it has its own kind of alchemy, which is where you can get into astrology and other aspects like that, because it's just pointing to that. It's pointing to that reality, like that we're tidal. We're not we're not just these robotic, static beings. Like, we know that. But so to have every day, like on your calendar or schedule, look the same, to me isn't honoring. It's not honoring that flow.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my passion is, especially as this, I'm turning 40 this week, like this adult version of Andrea, is to not just give up on that. Like, there's so many people, and like, I'll just say, life will tell you, you need to kind of buckle up, get your shit together. Hopefully we can curse on this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can edit. And, get in line, do what everyone else is doing. There's a formula to this thing called life and success. And, like, grow up, essentially. And
Mm-hmm.
I say, that's bullshit. I do. I say, why would you ever abandon the most magical aspect of yourself, which is the inner child? Like, why would you ever do that? It's our greatest gift to stay in touch with that part of ourselves. And creativity, I think, is the number one way that the child gets to speak through us, through the rigidity that we've collected through our whole life about, who we are and what we're supposed to be doing. And the child's like, hey, kind of tugging at us always, like, hey, what about me? Like, remember when we used to just sit and, like, lay in the grass and look at the breeze and that was enough? Like, you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so my passion is to keep that alive in myself and help other people do the same thing, because all the answers, in my opinion, are there.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. Acknowledging what Beth said. She said, be open to movement in whatever movement you're in or whatever moment you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'd almost kind of speak to like when you said, buckle up and get your shit together. I think there's almost a spiritual aspect to that too, that I'm kind of feeling that it's, e- I think sometimes I personally have to tell myself there when I'm falling too much into the formula, kind
Mm-hmm.
of like, Hollis, get it together. Just remember, sometimes I have to like awaken myself
Mm-hmm.
and use the language to myself and just kind of be like, stop it.
Mm-hmm.
There is, like you're saying, connect with that inner child. I was watching something on Gaia today about transcendence, and it just kind of showed an image of, the dichotomy of a man on a beach, and there was an older man walking down. It was kind of like stoic and just kind of set in his ways, and he saw this dancing figure at the other end picking up starfish or picking something, just dancing around. And as he got closer, he went up and he said, "What are you doing?" And there was starfish everywhere, and the kid he said, "I'm throwing them back into the water." And he's like, "You can't
Mm-hmm.
save all of them." And because they were all over the beach. And he said, "But I can save some."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that is, yeah. Instead of
Yeah.
putting your hands up and being like, well, you can't do anything, so don't do it.
And isn't, yeah, I mean, there's so much right there. I think of myself as a little girl trying to save all the worms when it would rain because they'd wash out onto the pavement. And I was like, go back. And I remember getting that message. Like, I was really into, I want to, help the environment. I want to save the animals. And kind of this, well, you're just one little girl. Like, you can't, like life's too big for you to save, essentially. Like, um and I love that. It's like, well, I can do one thing. I can do, I can help this being or whatever it is. So I love that message. But it's also, it's the cutting down that happens throughout our lives, and all well intentioned, because people aren't, they're not, they don't have, their motive isn't to cut you down, but that's just what happens. When you hear one at a time, like, that's not possible. Like, yeah, you won't be able to accomplish that in so many ways. Like, maybe they don't say it directly, but that's the
Mm-hmm.
messaging. It's like, well, this is for you and that's not. And it's kind of the get in line thing. Like, there's a whole process and a timeline, and when you're older, you know.
Right, right.
And it's like, I mean, and I hear myself, I have two little boys, 6 and 9. And so they're wonderful mirrors, of course, for how those stories live within me of what's possible and what's not. And I'll hear myself say it every now and then. And they want to do big things. And I'm like, well, and I
Right.
feel the resistance. And I know I have to stop and remember, for them, everything's possible. And you actually don't know, like, you don't know what they're capable of. Like, and you know what I mean? Like, just remembering how it kind of started for me in this shrinking of my capacity. And creativity is a huge area, like, where so many people say this: I'm not creative. I'm not creative. I don't have any, I don't, because we're thinking of the boxes of creativity that we were given, which is like drawing or painting or, music. And of course, the standards around those boxes. Like, well, it has to be good or it's not worth doing. And good in term, like, I don't even know who's like critiquing this, but we have this whole, like, it has to be good. I can't sing. Like, that was my big thing. I can't sing because I don't have a beautiful voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you touched on, yeah, there's so many societal definitions of what a quote unquote artist is, what a creative person is. And yeah, exactly. Like we get put in boxes, back to, it would make me nuts when teaching art and the classroom teacher would drop a class off. And then in front of everybody, they'd be like, so and so is like the class artist.
Yeah.
And I'd be like cringing, like, don't do that.
Right.
Like, that's amazing for that person. And I'm honoring, it's not taking away from their skills, it's honoring their skills. But everybody who just like, it's starting in third grade that there's the artist, that so-and-so is the artist and I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts to plant those seeds. And yeah, because whenever I do professional developments, and the point of it would be that I would be either teaching non-art teachers how to incorporate art into the classroom or working with art teachers on, different ways on how to do things and that kind of thing. But especially when working with the non-art teachers, I would ask how many people see themselves as creative, and not many would raise their hands.
Mm-hmm.
And when here, then fast forward to where I am now, and I realized that for 30 years of my career, this is what I've been saying is creativity is an expression. Everybody has it. It's your voice. It's what you bring to the world. It's what inspires you. That's your creativity. When people start to understand that, their posture, like everything about them changes.
Yeah, I mean, so another definition of creativity that I really embrace is being the creator of your life. I mean, with your word, like words are such a powerful way that we create our lives. And I love this. I recently heard the statement that your words are spells.
Ooh.
And I love that so
Beautiful.
much because I've always been really interested in language and increasingly the power of language to shape culture, and whether that's in your house or your community or the world, I mean, at any level, but that there are spells in that they're creating an experience of you.
Yeah.
And essentially, like, that's how we communicate who we are to people and what we care about. It's through our words,
Right.
of course, through our actions too, but usually it starts with a word. So it's something to, it's both a responsibility, but it's also a liberation if you like really let that in, because you start to realize, oh yeah, by naming and claiming what is, what I value, what's true for me, what I'm honoring, like I'm creating a space to have more of that come into my life.
Mm-hmm. To opening up that space.
Yeah, like a little spell, like in the sense of like not a curse, right? But it could go either way. And that's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's fun to talk about it in, ooh, let's see what we can create. But the truth is, most of us just use language in a way that goes reverse on us as far as creating a reality we don't want and creating a life that isn't inspiring, because we're just kind of regurgitating what we were told, is how we're supposed to be living and what we're supposed to be doing. So,
And it's like the outward words and the inward words. It's like, would you really be friends with yourself with all of your inward words?
oh, geez, yeah. That's where the real work. That's where the real work happens.
Would you
Like,
be friends with that
ooh,
person?
yeah, not so nice.
Not so nice.
Yeah.
Could you tell people about this? Because when we connected, and thank you so much, Beth, for connecting Andrea and I. Very grateful. You just finished up a 12-week journey that you put
Mm.
out into the world. Could you tell people a little bit about that?
Sure. It's called Envision Feminine Leadership, and it really is a journey. It's one of the things I just want to start by saying. I it's like when you greet every day as a masterpiece. What does it have to tell me? Planning is nice, but it's really like I really don't know what's going to happen, in a given, experience or a given moment. So I'm completely open. I set the container for the intention, but my favorite thing is that I don't know what's going to happen because every individual in the room, we had 25 women in this group, and some virtual, some had live gathering too. But it's like they are creating this space as much as I am,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
really honoring that is one of my joys because it's just, I just stand in awe of the whole thing. But the intention for it is really, really taking a stand for the feminine principle being placed back at the heart of leadership. And it's a movement. I mean, it's, clear. I'm not the first person, of course, to come up with this, but I have felt called and have been on this path for many years of, understanding the stories that have shaped women and power primarily, and women taking kind of ownership of their lives. And I'll say I'm interested in human beings doing that, but because of my experience as a woman, it's unique. Um, it's unique to being in a woman's body, in my opinion, and the cycles that we go through in our life. So that's where I've been hanging out. But the goal is, of this particular program, is to help people reconnect, to help women reconnect, with the truest essential self, and really nourish her, and really listen to what she has to say, and kind of listen to how she's been speaking to herself, like you just we're talking to. The voices inside our heads aren't so nice, um, and what's the life that she really wants to live, and
Hmm.
how is that different than the one she's living? So the program, it's not just this standalone, it's actually a 4-part process, but this first one was called the seed, and it's all about, it's seed, and then the second part is sprout, and
Hmm.
then the third part is bloom, and then the fourth part is pollinate.
Oh my gosh, love it.
Yeah, so it's this idea that, life, it's the spiral. It's like life's happening in cycles. It's, every year is its own cycle. Every stage is a cycle, and that is definitely part of the feminine. The feminine energy moves that way, and as does creativity. Right? It's not a line. It's moving in waves and undulations and flowing in and out. And so the seed was all about nourishing. It's like, who is this essential Andrea? I'll just say, who is she? What does she love? What makes her come alive? Where is she, hiding? Where is she not ready to, hasn't been willing or ready to emerge? And how do we love her in all of those parts, the abandoned parts, the parts that are exalted, and start to weave them back together. And we did that through meditation, through, this was heavily focused on meditation and breath work, because there was a lot of listening, and it's like, well, what's going on inside? And there was movement, and there was, we would get together once a week as a circle and do different practices, hear each other's stories, which I think is the most important piece to all of it, is storytelling. and understanding. And we were reading Elizabeth Lesser's book, Cassandra Speaks, which
Mm-hmm.
is such an amazing, it was just a perfect complement to this journey, because she really is going into her own experience as a woman in power, and the mythology of, of power that has been given to us as a society, of who, like, that it's stories we might not have read, but we've heard. They're a part of our language, like Eve. Cassandra's not as well known, but her story is about essentially being given the gift of, she was a demigod, and she was given the gift of vision, so she could see everything that was going to happen. But I think it was Zeus, it was either Zeus or Apollo, who fell in love with her and wanted her so badly and desperately, and she didn't want him, and so he cursed her by saying, you can keep your gift of intuition and vision, but no one will ever believe you.
Oh my God.
And so her whole, the rest of her life was very tragic, and she ended up like foreseeing the Trojan War, but no one believed her. And like the last part of her life was like, she ended up getting like raped by a soldier on the battlefield. And it's and when I read her story, I my whole body was chills, because if that isn't one of the biggest wounds of the feminine, is having the gift of foresight and intuition, and really seeing this bigger picture, but not being believed, or not feeling like it's a story, like it's something that we can voice. And that's probably why I'm so interested in words, because we've had them, I think, as a collective, we've been silenced for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And while in my generation, I mean, I've had a lot of freedom of speech, and I'm able to do this group, I'm able to, but yet it still lives within me, because our bodies have a different experience. Our bodies remember the stories. They carry the stories of our mothers and our grandmothers,
Right.
and so this feeling of kind of like being choked is very real to me, like being suffocated from my truth. And so there's a lot of healing around that. And so I think, so storytelling in this program is really at the heart. It's like telling your story, and not just the one that you've lived, but the one that you're claiming, the one that you're stepping into. And that's where the creation comes in. It's like, I have a different vision, and I'm going to start speaking it, and I'm going to start stepping into it. And I'm going to do it in community, and to people that aren't going to judge me or tell me I'm wrong. And I'm picking up the paintbrush. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what it is. And it's amazing, because you could do this work just goes on and on and on. I don't think it's ever, I think I'll be 80 and still,
Yeah.
like, yeah, what's in there? Like, what else wants to come through? It's just, it never ends. It's a beautiful part of life.
You're such a beautiful way of, I mean, you really are amazing with your words. Your words are just very, the words that you choose are just very descriptive. Um, this one was like, that's sticking out to me is weave. Use the word weave to weave back together. And I just think that's so beautiful, because in so many of these ideas, it is kind of like this up and down movement. And, kind of relating again to teaching in the art room, it's, when teaching weaving, that whole up, down, people, there's this method to it. There's a structure. But then, people would skip and forget where they were supposed to go under, and skip over 2 or skip over 3, and they get frustrated because it wasn't working within the structure. But then they found out really cool things when that wasn't working. It was like, oh, that actually looks really cool. It's like a wider stretch. Like, keep that. Like, it doesn't, there are certain structures that exist because certain things can work better that way. And it's not acknowledging that. But there, when you make those mistakes, it's like that beautiful oops. It's embracing it and being like, oh, I wouldn't have known that unless I made the mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. And embracing those, it's like it's the most challenging parts of our lives are where we learn the most, where we feel, maybe not in the moment, because if it's really difficult to feel, we might put it away for a while, but those are the places where there's so much richness, and to weave in a way to express that at the level of the soul that even moves beyond words
Yeah.
is extremely, I don't think it's just powerful, it's critical if it needs, to get that energy to move. Words can get stuck in mind. It can
Yeah.
become a clever thing, like, oh, I'm going to be clever about my pain. and and it's something you can't, through movement or through just picking up the paintbrush and or whatever the medium is. There's a freedom there where words can limit.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's that it's still it's storytelling in like you just said, in whatever format that is, whether it's going into the science lab and that's a place that you love to be, and looking under the microscope, or collaborating with others because that's a space that you feel like you can grow and get ideas out, and whether it's in the kitchen making a recipe and you're not speaking, but you're taking all of the ingredients and putting them together.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
all of
your
those things. Yeah, cooking is very creative. And science, that's a funny one. I remember having that realization in the last, it wasn't that long ago, it was probably definitely in the last like 5-10 years, that I was like, oh my gosh, I always thought scientists were so just like closed, kind of this very rigid way of being, like, oh, there's a a formula or like an equation, and we're going to prove this. And I realized, wow, they're one of the more, I mean, everything, and I'm not going to say every scientist is the same, of course, but what brings someone to science is curiosity usually.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's this experimenting with reality that's happening. It's like, oh, if I push this, what'll happen? And if
Right.
it, and I never looked at it that way. I was like, oh my gosh, I was seeing this, so like I was off about this. And so yeah, it's and the same thing with cooking. It's like chemistry, it's alchemy. It's like any time where you're like, what would happen if I put this and this together, and you get a new creation. um, and seeing how that shows up, and for me, and I think the most accessible way has been to really look at my day like that. It's like, oh, if I go left, like, what'll happen, versus if I start my day like this. And it's all a big experiment. And it's like, it doesn't really matter, like, let go. I mean, and I think that's where we take the breath out of it, is when we decide what it means before it's happened, or we decide what's possible before we've even tried,
Oh my God, that is so darn powerful. Do you remember what you just said?
Yeah.
Can you say that again? If you remember.
Yeah. Where we take the breath out of, I get creativity, or ourselves even, is when we decide what's possible before we've even tried. And we
Yeah.
decide what's going to happen before we take the step.
Yeah.
And that's from direct experience of living that way for most of my life. Like everything was just avoiding making a mistake. Like, oh my God, if I can just not make a mistake, then I'll be good, or then I'll be lovable, or then I'll be, I don't know, happy. And it's one of the biggest lies, like, because that, in all of that, I think of it as like literally holding my breath, because I did a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I cut off so much vitality and so much joy, just like pure joy and pleasure, because I was so focused on getting that, whether it was a grade or like approval. And women, I do feel that women have that a lot stronger than men in general. I feel like we've been kind of conditioned to, just, whatever it is. Sometimes it's like, just look pretty and smile and everything will be fine. Or it's just about, getting what you did, as long as you're a good girl, like things will work out for you. Not so much about what you have to say, or like, what you actually want to do. And so we forget who we are. We forget what we love. We forget that pleasure is a birthright. It's not a bonus at the end of a long day. That comes in the form of chocolate and wine, Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's just, I don't know, that's what I did. I was like, I'm just going to spend my whole entire day focused on being productive. And then after all that,
Right.
I'll get my treat.
Right.
And it's like, how about you just sprinkle treats throughout the day? Like, how about there's treats everywhere, like in the form of, and for me, that looks like lingering. I love to linger. I love to linger when I feel like, usually it's like a little tiny flower that I come across that just wants me to bend down and really like see her, or a bird that I just want to, I hear it, but I want to find it. I want to say hi to it. Those little moments when, and giving myself the time to just be in that space. To me, that's living my best life, really. It's allowing, because in that moment, I'm making a choice. Like, what do you value more, getting to this thing on time or being this for somebody else? Or those are important too, but we're talking about like 2 minutes, it just takes like a minute or two to follow the soul, which is like, I want to linger over here, and that's the dance. It's like, they're both important, like showing up for people, and also showing up for your inner self that wants to just have a little moment.
Yeah, and communicating that and expressing that and being heard with that.
Yeah.
And validated for that. Have you ever, I don't know if you're a movie watcher. There's a movie called I Am Pretty.
Mm-mm.
It's a romantic comedy. But when you were talking, I was just kind of envisioning it, because the gist of it is that she's a little heavy set. She's, all this kind of, she's always dreamed of working in this fashion place. And she fell and hit her head in an exercise class. And all of a sudden it just tweaks her thinking, where she looks at herself in the mirror after the accident, and they're just scared they're going to get sued. Like they're just like, oh my God. And she's just like, oh my God, do you see this? And the woman's like, yes. Like, she's got her stomach rolls, and she's like, I'm beautiful. Look how pretty I am. And she's like, okay. And she all of a sudden had this confidence beyond belief. Like, she was just strutting her stuff and just felt so good. And all of this stuff started coming into her life because she felt so good. And then she hit her head again, and, all of a sudden she was like, wait, what happened? I'm back. No, I don't want to be back in this. And it was just, the whole weaving of it and then how it changes in the end. But yeah, that's really powerful.
Yeah, and they both give you access. Both those aspects of our experience give you access to compassion.
Mm.
So having that part of you that it's like I think we all have the experience of you wake up and you're like, oh my god, did I just age like 10 years? Like you just, you just like see
Who is
yourself
that?
in a way like, who is that? Like, when did that happen? And then another day, you're full of life and you have a glow to you and a little kick in your step and you're like, I got this. Yeah, I'm rocking it. And they're both important because there's lies with both of them about like what that means, what that means for somebody else usually, or for you, like,
Yeah.
oh, she's got it all and women, it's like we're so hard on each other because we're so hard on ourselves. So
Yes.
we'll make up all these stories like, oh, she's all put together, like she doesn't, essentially, like it's not hard to be her, like everything probably works out for her because she's pretty, stuff like that.
Right. Right.
Or that it's hard to be someone who's not, or in our opinion, right? Like there's just it goes both ways. And I think when we get to embrace the times when, even if it's going to be uncomfortable, like, but the times we don't feel particularly on fire and we're kind of like a hot mess, and the times where we're rocking it, if we can give both of them the space they need, I feel like what happens from that is a deep compassion for the truth of both of them.
Yeah.
And it translates out. It translates out to other people. So that, and I think the biggest thing is like, nothing's fixed. Nobody's fixed. Nobody's just one way. We are a full spectrum. We have all of it. Each one of us has all of it. We have the rock star, and we have, the humble servant, like, who isn't seen. And they're both there. It's just how much I think everything is like, as far as human connection and goes, and getting back to more of a balance with the feminine and masculine in each one of us, which is the being and the doing. I think for me, like, most simply, it's the being and the doing parts of ourselves. Is it takes us really embracing all of these aspects of who we are, and so we can hold space for everybody else, really. It's not just like, oh, I just want to focus on myself because I'm totally self-absorbed. It's like, no, it's for a bigger, I mean, you could do that. That's a thing. I know I'm sure that's a thing. But when the intention is for humanity, like,
Right.
when the intention is so I can really expand my understanding of the people that are in my world and open myself up to holding more space for them and all their behaviors and all of their, the things that are challenging. Can I just, in the end, like, hold space for their behavior, so I can see who they are beyond it and focus on that more.
Mm-hmm. So this is a great way too. So we've kind of woven in between question 1 and question 2. And we're getting
That's
to
what
the top
happens.
of the hour. We're getting to the top of the hour, which is going to take me to the third question. So why is creativity important?
It's a lifeline. It's a lifeline, particularly in this year we just had, where so many people are isolated. Geez, what a way. So I picture being alone. I know a handful of people who created a ton of artwork, Elizabeth being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
created all these beautiful paintings and had no idea that that was going to bless so many people's lives when she did it, but it was inspired to do it. And one of the things I thought of pretty early on was like, wow, there's going to be so many books written and songs. And, with this time alone, people are going to really lean hard into their creativity
Yeah.
because that is ultimately the lifeline, and that's our connection to the creator, whatever that means for people. But it comes back to the first question, which is dancing in partnership with the divine. When we do that, we're not alone. There's another being that's present when we're creating, that's coming through us. That's how I feel it, at least. Some people call it your muse, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a sense of collaboration. You're not just alone in the room writing your book or painting your painting. You might sense multiple different entities, energies, that are coming through, and they're like cheering you on. They're like, "Ooh, put a little sparkle there," or like, "Ooh," like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, don't forget to put this in." I mean, I think if we pay attention,
Yeah.
creation, it's like opening up these portals to beyond time and space. We sometimes our ancestors come in, and sometimes definitely our inner child comes out. But I think also a future aspect of ourself comes in too. This wisdom. It's like, whoa, where did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
Woo, that was good. I gotta write that down. Oh, yeah, I gotta write that down. So yeah, lifeline.
I love that. I see. And it's right before you said the word portals, I was thinking, God, yeah, it's like a portal.
Mm-hmm.
It's that our chakra, our crown chakra. It's like being open to just allowing it to pour in and understanding. I mean, there's freedom to me in understanding that we aren't alone.
Mm.
That even though we may be alone in our space, that there's so much connection if we're open to that connection.
Yeah.
Whether that open to connection is being through understanding, like you said, is, in a more spiritual realm, and the awareness of the entities and things around you, if that is something that you believe in and are open to. But then the connection that you can have to nature, the connection that you can have, see, even if it's that one person in your life that you care about, picking up the phone and talking to them, or however you do that, it's being open to that connection to for that lifeline.
Absolutely. And what's so devastating is how many people weren't able to find that connection, during this time, and hearing of, and even knowing multiple people who've lost loved ones to suicide this year.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't find it. They couldn't find that anchor, you know. And I do believe, like, I know it's not a belief. It's like creativity saves. It saves you. It saves the soul from going dry, like essentially dying, because it can't find the sustenance it needs in this box, you're stuck in.
My God, that is so freaking powerful.
I
It's
mean,
just, it's like, it's that box that it goes back to all the stuff that, we've been talking about with your voice and breath work, and you're being asphyxiated. Like, you can't breathe when
mm-hmm.
you're in this box. And that's what I see so much of is people just getting stuck and adulting and being not expressing and not being able to breathe, not taking time to breathe, not having the awareness, and being sad.
And that is, I mean, people, I definitely, a lot of my work is around breath, like, because that is what carries, like our breath is what carries life. It carries oxygen. It also carries intelligence, and it carries a connection to, if you want to talk about chakras, like, so these different portals of expression. And I can't, it's hard to name the things that are so fundamental. It's so fundamental and simple, and yet it's everything. Everything is there.
Right.
It really is. Like, it was, if you
Yeah.
cut it off, when
Yeah.
you cut it off, you're cutting off vitality, and you're also cutting off access to all of this information that wants to flow.
Yeah.
And essentially, so it's not about, it's never about that you need more of it. It's that you just need to get out of the way. You need to use, and I want to say figure out, but it's really get into your body through your breath, through movement, which go together. And you will start, creativity will just start to happen. It is just a natural byproduct of doing that, um, and every time I wake up every morning and meditate, and I get in my breath, I open up my lungs, like pranayama, which is just breath work. And I'll have all this information come in, and it's not like a to-do list. It's like ideas.
Yeah.
It's a movement, and we all have access to that, but not many people realize it needs some space. You just have to give it some space, like a fire. You have to breathe into it. You need to, take a pause and not just get out of bed and jump up and, get dressed, drive off to work. I mean, that's how a lot of people, I think, had, at least before COVID, were going through their lives, like, very much this closed off, kind of like robotic way. And creativity needs space.
Yeah.
And I think the more you do it, the less time and space you have to, like, dedicate, because it just starts to self-fulfill. It just starts to really move and happen. But at first, yeah, it can take a little bit of, okay, I need a literal space to do this, whatever it is, or to have this time for myself. And then breath is a way of making space in the body, like literally opening up areas that are tense, or there's no movement.
So this is a perfect way to wrap up our hour. It really is. I'm like putting it out to all of you listeners. Like, are you breathing? Are you taking this time? Are you taking this space?
Yeah.
Notice that. And if you're not in trouble. Just allow yourself. And if you're not sure how to do it, then just take those moments. Just take those moments. I mean, would you suggest, before I have you tell people how they can reach out to you, Andrea, like, if somebody doesn't know how to start, would you say literally set a timer for 5 minutes?
Yeah, I would even set it for 2. Set it for 2. Just start where you are. Start with, let's everybody take, just put down, if you're holding or move or walking or doing something, plant your feet on the ground, sit up tall, take a deep inhale through your nose, let it go down all the way to your belly, and then open your mouth and let it go with a big sigh. Do 2 more of those. Inhale up through your feet, all the way up to your head. Exhale. Let it go. Let the jaw soften. Let the body soften. 1 more. Inhale. Hold the breath at the top. Fill up. Fill yourself up with yourself. Exhale. Let it go completely. That's a shifter.
Yeah.
3 breaths.
3 breaths. 3 breaths. So take those 3 breaths, and I am so grateful for you, Andrea. Can you please tell people how they can find you?
Absolutely. Yeah, so you can go to my website, which I think you're posting too, but it's
Yeah.
Tayogini. It's THAYYOGINI.com, tayogini.com. So I also practice Thai massage. And I have a program starting at the end of March. It's going to be amazing. It's both virtual and in person for all of you who are not in Auburn. So check that out. And the doors are open for registration, and my line is open if you want to contact me. My information's on my website, and it is to step into something like this work is to start to really take the paintbrush for your life and make a epic masterpiece. So why
Yeah.
not? We're here, why not?
Why the hell not? Why
So
the
thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for if you're listening, and to Hollis, what a joy to meet you. Thank you, Beth, for introducing us. And yeah, can't wait to talk to you again sometime.
Thank you, Andrea. Definitely. I so appreciate this connection and your true inspiration. And everybody, thank you so much for taking this hour to listen to the conversation, because it really does mean so much. Time is of the essence, I know, and we really appreciate or very grateful to you. And this space is all about connecting, inspiring, and sharing stories. So please follow, share, get the word out there so we can just inspire each other and connect each other. So that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
So I'm wishing everybody so much goodness wherever you are in this world. And I look forward to speaking very soon to all of you. So have a good day, evening. Okay. Talk to you later, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.